Hi, it's Dwyer. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. Always1776.com, a free site. Today is November the 5th, 2020. Let's talk politics. Let's talk the fallout from the presidential election. One man's point of view. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, believe it or not, some of my friends are very progressive, right? Very progressive. They've been hitting me up since Joe Biden has won the 2020 presidential race here in the United States, right? I understand there are legal challenges. I understand there are irregularities out there, right? I understand that. I know Trump is challenging things. I understand that officially no one's going to be elected president for some time. But let's assume for purposes of this video that Joe Biden has won the presidency. Now, I'm really just interested in ways to profit as well as freedom, right? From this seat. The Biden blue wave is already over, right? First, I'm not sure if it was ever authentic. The candidate himself, historically, has been a moderate, right? He's supported crime bills. He's talked about predators without fathers in the past. He's been in Washington a very long time. I don't recall him pounding the table, talking about a path for citizenship for immigrants, or Green New Deal, or even being a hardcore environmentalist in the past. I believe he aligned himself with progressives this election cycle to have a path to power, right? But already you're seeing him distance himself from, we'll call it, the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, right? He's already backed away from a fracking ban. He's already backed away from the Green New Deal. Most of the rest of his agenda will likely be stopped by the Senate. Now, here's where you do have a watershed moment in American politics. Understand the GOP did not have the financial resources that the Democrats had in terms of running for the Senate. Understand, several high-profile GOP senators who were up for re-election were outspent by their relatively unknown Democratic opponents, including Mitch McConnell, including Judiciary Committee member Lindsey Graham. So you go down the line, Susan Collins, another person, outspent by their opponent. But yet, and it's a watershed moment because it could have easily gone the other way. But yet, the Republicans have held control of the Senate. Folks, that's huge because in a predominantly two-party system, the results are binary, right? By having a slim majority in the Senate, and it's slim, Mitch McConnell has returned as Senate Majority Leader. Right, folks? Understand that's huge. Everything that requires Senate approval is now in jeopardy in terms of the Biden agenda. So, there's going to be the appointment of very few, if any, liberal judges. Some very progressive inspired ideas that were floated during the Democratic primaries. For example, Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax, not an income tax, but a tax on wealth that would have required a governmental inventory of all of your assets and debts on an annual basis, as well as your unrealized capital gains. That's out the window. You also have huge problems that are just festering, that need to be acknowledged, like the state pension crisis, right? I should say states' pension crisis. Illinois in trouble. Kentucky in trouble. New Jersey in trouble. Well, understand, now we know that whatever solution is going to happen to those state pension funds is going to have to come from the states themselves. I don't believe there's going to be any federal bailout of state pension funds. Folks, that's a huge issue. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, right? That's a huge issue. Also, let's talk about the issue of police reform, right? Senator Tim Scott's bill wasn't approved by the House, right? The issue was one of the qualified immunity of police officers, right? Understand there are many, including Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, who feel that if police officers have qualified immunity, then that's a recipe for disaster. That's going to lead to policemen being more violent, violating more rights, because they'll know as long as they could argue that it wasn't a clear violation of the other party's constitutional rights, then they're shielded from legal liability. Well, folks, I'm just telling you, forget about police reform that doesn't include qualified immunity. That's not going to happen now. The Democrats lost the Senate. Mitch McConnell, an experienced Senate Majority Leader, is back in charge. Right? Understand, you have an entire portion of the nation that supports law enforcement and that also wants limited liability for people acting on behalf of the state. Right? It would be harder to recruit police officers, quite frankly, if they didn't have some legal protections. Also, some of these situations happen very quickly. To have a police officer's personal assets at risk might dissuade people from joining the force, might dissuade people from any kind of backbone in serving their communities, right? In being a police officer. So, I know Biden hasn't been sworn in yet, but already people need to realize, at least for the next 2 years, at least while the Senate still has Mitch McConnell as the Senate Majority Leader, right? Some of the progressives' most bold ideas, like the wealth tax, are going to fall by the wayside. That's just how it is. I believe Mitch McConnell is offering an olive branch right now to Democrats by saying, look, a top priority right now is to talk about stimulus package relief, right? For this COVID-shaken economy. Okay, fair enough. But let's not kid ourselves. McConnell's not going to cave to the plan that Pelosi proposed before, the House plan that was previously rejected. If anything, now he's more emboldened. Understand, McConnell just won a new 6-year term. That's longer than the president's 4-year term. Let's also realize, too, that at 77, it's extremely unlikely that Joe Biden's going to run for re-election. Extremely unlikely. Let's think this through further. This is a recurring pattern in American politics. The party of the president, whether the president is GOP or Democrat, typically loses the midterm elections in the House and Senate. So understand, Republicans right now have the majority in the Senate. If history is our guide, they likely will pick up seats in 2022. So right now, the stock market is going bonkers. Right? People are wondering, gee, what's going on here? Why has the stock market picked up so considerably since the election, given the uncertainty still in the ultimate winner? I believe it's because there is no uncertainty in terms of who's the Senate Majority Leader. Folks, you don't have Democratic control of the Senate. The blue wave has been stopped. Cold. Joe Biden now, by the way, has political cover. Understand, I believe he knows that the idea of packing the Supreme Court's crazy. Right? Understand, for historians, they know that one of the weaker parts of FDR's legacy was his effort to pack the Supreme Court. By the way, back then, it was his own party, the Democrats, who took him aside and said, "Player, what the hell are you doing? This is a bad idea." Well, now, knowing that there's no chance of passage in the Senate, no chance, Biden can propose things to satisfy his progressive supporters. Things like packing the Supreme Court that are going to go nowhere. Nowhere in the U.S. Senate. Right? If he wants to get ambitious, he could even say, hey, we need a Green New Deal. Folks, it'll go nowhere in the U.S. Senate. So now Biden has political cover. He can do things to satisfy the progressives in the Democratic Party, knowing privately that they're not going to pass. Let's also talk about the obvious, too. The progressives right now in the Democratic Party must feel like hostages. Right? Many of the candidates who were running were, we'll call them true progressives, people with a progressive past. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, people who for years have been talking about things like environmental protection, right? Tax fairness, if not outright MMT, modern monetary theory, right? The need to print more money, get more money out there, perhaps universal basic income. Well, they didn't win. A moderate won the party nomination and now, I believe, the presidency. So you can imagine by 2022, if progressives who feel in their hearts that Bernie should have been the nominee in 2016, who feel in their hearts that much of their agenda has been ignored this time, who did not appreciate Joe Biden backing away from a fracking ban, who did not appreciate Joe Biden backing away from the Green New Deal. You can imagine if they don't get something tangible within the next 2 years, then in the midterms, they might simply stay home. They might not vote for midterm candidates. They might even plan to run their own candidate against Kamala Harris in 2024. So right now, what does all this mean? It means gridlock. And understand, the markets are loving it. Right? The big fear here was that Congress was going to go fully left, and that people were going to have to sell their stocks to realize their capital gains this tax year before Congress ramped up the tax rate on future capital gain realizations. Now people understand, with Mitch McConnell back in the saddle in the Senate, that's not going to happen. That's how I see it. I understand there are many different points of view. YouTube is an interactive forum. So if you agree or disagree with me, tell us about it in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.